such a good number of people, we have often been chided that the level of communication out about our various meetings has not been sufficient, despite the fact that a good level of advertising is done, etc., etc., etc. So there was a little extra effort put into this round of listening tours, and really nice to see so many people here. In terms of the housekeeping proceedings for this evening, I want to advise you, well, I'm going to tell you, or at least ask you, as to your preparedness to accept a recording of this evening's meeting. We, from a council point of view, will be recording, subject to your approval, just the proceedings for the evening for no reason other than simply to have a record of the level of conversation. And I want to ask, is there anybody else in the audience who is intending to record? And can you state the reason why you would be wanting to record?
Media use and personal use, and a personal record for longevity.
And I want to ask the gathering here this evening, are you happy for these recordings to take place?
Yes.
Can a copy refer to be made to the rest of the audience?
Upon request, yeah. Okay, happy with
I'll put this up on YouTube. Everybody can see this eventually.
Okay, so everybody's happy, right?
Make sure of it.
Guaranteed.
Now, the purpose of this evening's listening tours, and this is number 2 of 9 listening gatherings that we will be presenting over the next weeks. The purpose is, and I indicated to our team, councils and our CEO and staff, there's an idea. The idea is to give you a higher level of insight into the way in which the budgets for council are put together and some of the elements that need to be considered when a budget is put together. Somebody said recently, well, it's a bit late to be coming out to talk to us about the budget now. The budget's already cut. Let me tell you that we are in fine time for the preparation of the next budget, because the budget for next year doesn't happen on the 30th of June next year. The budget planning and preparation starts probably during November at the latest of this year, and we continue work at it and work through it for the next months. So this is not a 5-minute job. It takes quite a long period of time to gather all the information together and to finally come to a result at the end of it. Each of the councillors tonight, those present, I must say that there are apologies from Councillor Fleischfresser and Councillor Height, clashing with other events that's happening in their lives at the moment. But I want to introduce the top table to you. Firstly, our Chief Executive Officer, who will be speaking later, Mark Pitt. Mark Pitt comes to us, has been with us now for just over 3 months, and is settling in nicely to the South Burnett Regional Council and getting a good grip on the way in which the South Burnett operates and functions. Because this is his first appearance at a meeting in Blackbutt, I'd like you to welcome him with a round of applause. I'll also introduce our other executive team, Aaron Meehan, who's the General Manager of Infrastructure. He'll be speaking later. General Manager Lester Shoemaker, who is at the end, he's the man who controls the levers on the finance, and General Manager Peter O'May, who's the General Manager of Corporate Services. In years gone by, or in other years, we have not presented ourselves in the company of the Chief Executive Officer and General Managers, and I have to say that I and my council team are very pleased and proud of the fact that we have the support of our Chief Executive Officer and our senior management team for being here. I now want to introduce our councillors. I guess you know them all, but I'll do it again. On my left is Councillor Cathy Duff, the Deputy Mayor and also the representative for Division 5. We have Councillor Ross Froliff, who's Division 1. By the way, Councillor Duff's portfolio areas are natural resource management, parks and Indigenous affairs. Councillor Ross Froliff, her portfolio area is water, wastewater, waste management, sport and recreation. We have Councillor Gavin Jones, whose portfolio area is roads and drainage, and this is his divisional representation. And I know that he will be personally very pleased with the number of people who have come along here tonight as well. Then we have Councillor Denise Potter from Division 3, and Councillor Potter's portfolio area are community arts, tourism and health services. The missing councillors, Councillor Terry Fleisch-Presser, his portfolio area is planning and property, and Councillor Ros Hyde, her portfolio area is finance, ICT and human resources. And so that introduces the team. Now we're going to start off with a brief presentation by each of the councillors, and I'll start with our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Duff, who might like to just tell us a few words about her portfolio area and its relativity to the budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's great to be here. The last time I was here, I was actually judging the best dressed avocado outfit, and I actually had an avocado necklace around my neck, which got featured on Facebook. And the year before that, I came to the Avocado Festival here, and I judged the guacamole in this hall, and I didn't even know what guacamole was, but I was judging it. And I don't know whether I did a good job, but I didn't get asked back this year to judge it. But it was a fantastic festival, and hats off to Jeff and all of the team who put that on, because it is helping to put Blackbutt on the map, the Avocado Festival. It's also great to hear the rain on the roof. So I live on the far northwest boundary of the region, and as we were coming along, I had a look, and there's been about 12 mil out where we live, so we're all getting a bit, so that's very good. As the Mayor said, I am the portfolio holder for natural resource management, which is mostly takes in all the rural area. We have $1 million which goes into, in our budget, goes into weeds, pests and fire management and all those things to do with supporting the rural people, trapping, bait, 1080 baiting, all that kind of stuff. We've got $2.8 million roughly goes into parks, maintenance across the region. We've got roughly 8.75 hectares, plus the town entrances and various traffic islands and meeting strips that the council maintains. We look after 51 public conveniences and 13 cemeteries. My portfolio also has the airports of Wandai and Kingaroy. So there's 2 airports there and 2 great dam facilities. That's the BP Dam and Lake Bilduma. We also have the rail trails, the Southland Rail Trail, and also part of the Brisbane Valley Rail Trail. This portfolio also covers sale yards, and that's the Coolangatta sale yards and the dip facilities. Currently the Coolangatta sale yards has been, we put it out to tender, and we're negotiating with an AAM company who won the tender for the sale yards. That hasn't been finalised yet. And I also have the portfolio of Indigenous affairs, where we support NAIDOC celebrations, and I did come to one here in Blackbutt, and we also run one in Kingaroy. We've had 2 at the forecourt, and they've been very successful. And we also support the Reconciliation Fund Run, which is a run between Bergen and Sherwood. So I do quite a bit in the Indigenous affairs section of council. So that pretty much covers my portfolio, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy.
And I'd also like to say that I'm very honoured to be the Deputy Mayor. And sometimes I tell people, but they don't believe me, that the Deputy Mayor is more important than the Mayor.
to sit here and listen to us talk at you all night. There will be the opportunity for you to ask questions along the way. Now, if your question is deemed to be a point that you could have probably put in a customer request, we have Craig here, who's sitting just at the back of the hall. Craig is the coordinator of our customer contact. So if you are pulled up on a particular issue, because there is a process in council where you can lodge your request about matters, you don't have to wait for a meeting such as this to come out and tell us your brief about a pothole or a clogged gutter or anything of that nature. You can do that Monday to Friday between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. By just simply ringing one of the council's customer service desks, or you can speak to any one of the councillors themselves to lodge your request. I'd like to think that the purpose of this meeting will also be designed with some level of strategy in place. How can the operations and functions of council be better improved as a consequence of ideas and suggestions that you might have to put in place, or that you would like to put in place. You may not get an absolute answer on that tonight, but worthwhile ideas and suggestions will certainly be taken into consideration. Now, the next councillor I'd like to invite to say a few words is Councillor Ros Frolick, who'll talk a little bit about water, wastewater, waste management, sport and recreation. Thank you, Councillor Frolick.
Hi everyone, my name's Ros, I'm Division 1 councillor, so I've got Nanango, Wattle Camp, Whyalla, Ball Camp, Runnymede. This side of Nanango side, and I match on to Spud, which is on the other side of Nanango. First of all, the water and wastewater. We have 390 kilometres of water mains to maintain, and we have 284 kilometres of sewage mains. And that approximately 7.28 million has been allocated towards the operations for the maintenance of our water network in the region, with a further 1.47 million towards the water main renewal and upgrades across our region. And with waste, we have two parts with the waste collection, that's the pickup and the disposal. And that JJ Richards is our contractor that comes around and collects your rubbish bins. And every week they collect 13,839 wheelie bins a week. So that's quite a bit for them to do. But we have got allocated for the waste this year, for this financial year, 4,452,490. And that's a fair bit of stuff. We've got 4 major landfills that we've got to take care of and 13 transfer stations. So when you think about that, we've got to look into the future and see where we're going. So not all the landfills have got a life expectancy, which we've got to take care of, and it's got such stringent rules that we've got to do to close these landfills and make them safe and everything for everyone. The next one is the sport and rec. As you know, the sport and rec plan went out beginning of the year, and it was a bit of ace with that first draft, which it was just a draft. It wasn't the sign, seal, deliver thing. But I'd like to just let you know that there will be a second draft coming out soon for your perusal. So, and as I stated, it's still a draft. It's not concrete yet. So, and I'm happy to answer questions if you'd like.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Frolick. There's a question down the back, yes?
I've got a question on the buildings. I'm a business owner and I've also got residents as well in Blackbutt. I'd like to know why residential bins are charged $80.50 and a commercial bin is $94. Same size, same colour, same weight, goes to the same destination. Why, on behalf of all the businesses here in Blackbutt, why are we getting charged more for the same rubbish and the same price?
Okay, I'll take that as is a legitimate question, and Peter, you might like to be able to answer that.
Yeah, my understanding that the business charge has been set at the same rate for a number of years now, and I believe it's a process of actually, it doesn't move, and the residential, it's been pegged at that level, so it was set, I think, when the contract with JJ's was left, and so at the council we're trying to keep that at the same level until the other one moves up. So yeah, it is essentially essentially the same service.
My gripe is, when JJ Richards came in and took over, businesses can no longer, we can take rubbish to the tip, but we're getting charged astronomical charges. So I've now got more bins to help with my waste at the shop, and I don't know, I'm paying now $1,000 a year for bins, but they're the same size. That I just don't get it.
Okay, alrighty. Well, now,
Same quantities.
yep.
You know.
Can I say we'll take that as a point, everyone, that needs to be discussed, Mr. CEO. That can form part of the discussions relative to waste management.
How do I run a business now?
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah.
just keep getting charged
Yeah.
like a chuck.
Yeah. The point is taken. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
What is the charge at Blackbutt Banarkin facility? How do they work it?
Peter.
A cubic metre or by weight?
Yeah, for domestic waste, it's not. It's free to dispose of.
No, what's commercial?
So commercial, yeah, it's worked on a cubic meterage rate, or if it's
Okay. Are you wanting to know what the charge is?
Yeah.
Okay, rightio. That becomes a matter that this information can be fed back to you. If you'd like to see Craig, and he can give you the actual cost of the commercial waste at Blackbutt Banarkin. So if that's
Is that going on cubic metre?
Yep, rightio. Craig down the back. If this gentleman comes down to you during the course of the evening and just you give him his name, you give him your name, your telephone.
Is squashed or open, it'd be a different rate.
Craig, when you make the customer request, if you can work on the basis of, is it compressed or is it, just volume? Yep. Okay.
Just in response to that, it was the fact that I had a phone call from the bakery in Blackbutt and they took out the trailer load of boxes that weren't folded up and they wanted to charge them a full 6x4 cubic metre rate for half a dozen boxes, which was ridiculous. And we addressed that.
Yeah.
I think it was about $90, $95 a cube, 6x4 box trailer. And it was some stupid price, but that gentleman was exactly right. If you take your boxes out there, they were charging because the trailer was full. So I thought that issue had been addressed. I passed that on to staff and I thought that was addressed.
Okay, Deb Palmer.
Yeah, my gripe is exactly the same thing, and that's with the cardboard. We have cardboard and paper that goes from the newspaper. We take that cardboard out there, we're getting charged a ridiculous amount. And it's getting burnt with the green rubbish. And yet, anybody can walk out, take 4 or 5 trailer loads out there of green waste and you burn it, and at no cost. But if we take one load of cardboard, which isn't even a whole trailer, we have to pay $80-something a cubic metre. It's just ridiculous. So if we're getting charged to burn paper, why isn't everyone getting charged to burn waste? And why are we getting charged to burn a piece of green grass?
Point taken, Deb, and Mr. CEO, that's one that needs to be further discussed. Yes, sir.
Just to add to that, I believe the rate of dump is $120 a cubic metre,
Right.
which is JJ Richards.
Yep.
I've got a commercial bin, which is a 2 cubic bin, cost me $35 a cubic metre to get that empty.
Okay, right. Thank you. Yes, Rory.
If you had a recycling facility, then you wouldn't need to burn anything. Yarraman doesn't even, it allows people to go out with trailers to get mulch. We don't do anything. We don't do anything.
Yeah.
People shouldn't be charged for recycling materials. We, as a council, you should be recycling.
Well, the issue of whether we should be or shouldn't be is a subject that comes up for discussion within council often. And I'm not sure, Peter, do you have an immediate
We do the mulching at Menango and Kingaroy where we have sufficient green
We
waste.
get plenty up here too. I've seen mountains of it, and it just gets burnt.
Yep.
And it's not only bad for the environment, it's just a waste of
So
mulch.
we'll add recycling to the issues that we will talk about in respect to the issues of waste. Okay. All right. Now we'll move on then with Councillor Danita Potter, who correction. We don't move to Councillor Potter. We'll just have a few words from Councillor Jones from the roads area. And then we will go to Councillor Potter. Now, Councillor Jones and his General Manager, Aaron Meehan, will be having an extensive section in this presentation tonight because roads, potholes, all that sort of stuff has comprised a large part of the reason why our council has taken some bold steps this year to do as we have done. Councillor Jones, is there anything you'd like to say now, or do you want to reserve it until you...
It's probably just as easy to wait until, if it's
Okay.
fine by these guys, just to do it with Aaron when we get into it and do the whole lot together rather than start.
I'm happy with that. So you'll hear a chapter and verse shortly. Now, Councillor Potter, community arts, tourism and health services. Thank you.
Hi everyone, how are you all? Now I'm Danita and I've got, well, Keith's already told you what I've got. So that covers the libraries. Now, the things we do with the libraries in the South Banat, I feel, is absolutely incredible, especially things like rhyme time and story time, because we all know that the first 5 years of a child's life is actually the most important with regards to learning. My area also covers the tourism side of things as well, which includes South Banat Pact, Discover South Banat, and also, which covers also the travel expos and the visitor information centres. And I have to say here that the volunteers we have within the VICs right throughout the South Banat are incredible, and if anyone here is one of our volunteers, thank you from the bottom of my heart, because we couldn't do it without you. Community, I attend the interagency meeting, which is always held in Wondai on the first Tuesday of the month. That's where a lot of the government agencies and non-government agencies gather together and tell all the other agencies what they do, which is actually quite incredible to see the different agencies working together and talking together for the better of the South Banat is wonderful. Because if there's an issue with one, it'll usually affect someone else, and this way it's a problem shared is a problem halved. So to see those agencies all working together, whether they're government and non-government agencies, is wonderful. It's a good way to share information if someone is doing something special that other places can join in with as well. I also attend the Hospital Community Consultative Committee, which they have, which covers the whole Darling Downs health area. So they have a meeting at the hospital bi-monthly, which I attend on behalf of the community. There are also community members other community members that attend those meetings. It's just to see where the hospital's at and where the health system is at the moment in the area. Some of you already know that I'm actually chair of the South Banat Suicide Prevention Working Group, which is something that's very close to my heart, and this is probably where I screwed a little bit. If you please come and talk to me after if you want to discuss anything or find out how to be on the group or help with the group. We came here this year and did the Depressed Cake Shop. Thank you, Bunny Nut Cafe, for being such a gracious host and I think you did the 2-for-1 coffees, didn't you, for us? That was wonderful. So anyone who came along, they could go and get a 2-for-1 coffee there. So with the Suicide Prevention Working Group, it's as I said, it's something that's probably becoming more prevalent nowadays because a lot more people are talking about mental health, and it's probably one of the major issues that we have now. So feel free to talk about it to me if you want later. Arts, you've got a beautiful art gallery here. It's not one of the council art galleries, but you know, you've got Barbara, she's amazing. and some amazing artists that put their work in there. It's, with the artists we have within the whole South Burnett, the art scene is actually changing as we see it, because we've got Queensland Arts Gallery of Modern Art, GOMA, doing courses for people throughout the whole South Burnett up at the Bunyas. Actually, they're doing the course. They've chosen 3 people from the South Burnett, along with about another 10 or 12 other people to do a course up at the Bunyas, which then those people that are there from the South Burnett will take what they've learnt there and bring it down to the whole of the people within the South Burnett. So, and I do believe Bell is one of the chosen ones from GOMA for that particular course, which, I mean, that I actually think that's a bit of a coup for you guys especially. We've got, so also grants. We love talking about grants because that's where we actually give away money to all the community groups. If you need to know more about any of the grants, please come and ask me. We had a meeting with the gambling fund as well the other day, and I've got some cards here for the Queensland gambling grant. So if you want these, come and take them. It's got a bit of information on how to get hold of those $35,000 grants as well. I must add, that's nothing to do with us. My area also, in the health side of things, also covers mosquitoes. So we do have a mosquito program because we do have the Aedes aegypti mosquito within the South Burnett. So with the eradication that's going, we have a wonderful person, Megan, who does our mosquitoes, and she really knows her stuff. We also cover domestic dogs.
Sorry to interrupt, Elizabeth, talking about mosquitoes. Someone needs to look under the bridge down here at Blackbutt.
Okay. We need to let Craig know about that one, so he can
It's a
put out.
disgrace down there, it's reading.
Would you be able to go and have a chat with Craig after, so we?
Just let Craig know.
Because we definitely need, because when there's an issue with mosquitoes, we have no idea what mosquitoes there is. So, and if it's, and we've also got that new mosquito coming in. So, and I do believe there has been one person in the area, but that was something that they caught elsewhere. So we really do need to be very vigilant with regards to the Aedes aegypti mosquito. I think that's about it from me. So just don't forget to go to the library and check on the free Wi-Fi. It's great.
Thank you. Yes, Willow?
I don't actually have a question, but just on the art thing, and like you said, it's not council owned, but we have to support our local people. Bell McGrath and the Art Centre are running a trivia night on the 6th of October. So get yourself over to the art gallery and book a table. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, yes, thank you.
I'd like to ask why approximately a third of the people in this shire pay rates. That's the landowners. Now, there are people who are caravanning, the grey nomads. There are poor working people to a house at times. There are many people who don't own a house, who don't contribute anything towards upkeep of roads, maintenance of anything. Now, why should a few landholders be the ones to pay? Most of them are low income because they bought their houses many years ago. Today, people can't afford it. Now, the older generation cannot afford the rates. It's just eroding a supposed low income, whether it's a pension, super, or whatever it is. Now, I think a much fairer way, in my opinion, would be $20 a head a year over everyone receiving a pension, working part-time, working full-time, caravanning around, the whole lot.
Can we come back to your original proposal? And if I'm understanding it correctly, you're saying that there's a number of caravanners within the area who have their caravans parked somewhere on property that particular property owner is paying rates on. Would that be how it is?
No, there are people coming through the area. Hundreds of people a day.
Who are parking at the yeah, who are parking at the showgrounds, for example. Another character. Yeah.
Maybe in the bush, it doesn't matter where they're parking.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where they're tenting.
Yeah. Those caravanners, more than likely, I can't say for sure, are paying, and help me out here, councillors and Mr. CEO, but they are more than likely paying rates somewhere else. We welcome caravanners who come through the area, because these caravanners are people who generate and put dollars into the local economy. So we don't want to, if your proposal is that they should be paying a certain dollar rate because they are parked in the area here for a...
I'm not suggesting that.
She's saying that households, most of us have a one-person household, we pay the same amount of rates as, say, a family with 6 or, you know,
Yep.
or however.
Yep.
And they all use the services, so
Yes, that's true.
it's no proportional burden on the single
Well,
household.
the issue with rates, and Lester, we won't, if you could address maybe that point in your presentation. The issue of rates is determined on the unimproved capital value of your property, irrespective of whether there's one person living there or whether or not there's a dozen people living there. Now that may not be equitable in your eyes, but that's the way the whole of the state operates the rating system. Now, sorry?
And it's unlawful.
Well, I don't know about that, and I don't think what you're saying is correct. Nonetheless, the issue, this is not an issue that we can resolve here this evening. You're making a point. I'm sure the CEO has made a note of it. So it's a personal view that you're sharing. I get the point that a pensioner living in their house, pays a lot out in rates. Don't dispute that fact at all. But in terms of us as a council and the way in which our rates are modelled, they're modelled on the basis of the unimproved capital value of your house or your property, and that's the way it is as far as the law is concerned.
Actually, no, hang on. Actually, Keith, they're not. They're not. If that was the case, then all our general rates would go down because the government valuation has gone down in some cases by thousands of dollars.
Okay, righto. Well, that's...
So what you do is you set the rate in the dollar.
We do. We set the rate in the dollar.
And you put it up if you feel like it. And that's not fair.
No. It is perfectly fair. It's very legitimate, and
we know it's legitimate.
Now, Maureen, please. I'm very happy to conduct a personal conversation with you about, the do's and the don'ts as far as rates are concerned. You're right. If everybody's property valuation decreased, would your rates go down? Answer is no. Why? Because to run the business of council, there's a certain dollar value that's required to run the council business. And why is that necessary? Because if we didn't have the dollar value to run the business of council, well then your libraries may close, your swimming pools may close, a whole lot of other services that are provided within the council would cease to exist. Why? Because we wouldn't have the dollars to do it. So, valuations or not, and it's a big proposition. Very happy to talk it through with you one day to explain the process of it. Okay, well, we will.
Getting back to the issue that I quoted,
yes.
asking about the rates. Numerous caravanners have told me they've sold their house, they're living in a mobile home or caravan because they're fed up with being robbed.
Yep, okay. And did they tell you how much it costs for them to, run their caravans, etc.? I mean, it's a proposal, or it's a proposition that has many prongs with it. I mean, it's all very well to sit and make that as a comment, but it's a big exercise, a big argument. You can't really sit there and say they've sold their caravan, etc., and it's costing them far less than it was in their home. It may be the case, but we don't know the details, and this is not the platform where we're going to discuss the pros and cons of it because we don't know all of the information.
Well, under our constitution, only the federal government was allowed to tax land via the taxation.
Local government is a...
Excuse me, Mayor, can we move on?
Well, I'd like to move on. The lady is asking questions. The question has been deemed to be one that is not going to be resolved here. You have a personal view about a particular matter, so we will move on. And I want to talk about the issue of economic development within our region. That's a portfolio that I look after. Economic development, governance and communications. The issue of economic development is one that we continue to foster, and wherever we possibly can, try very hard to attract new businesses into the area. This is Blackbutt, Banarkan is part of the whole of the South Burnett region. Irrespective of where the business comes within the South Burnett, we see that as being beneficial for the whole of the South Burnett. So there are businesses within Blackbutt itself during the last 12 months, 18 months or so. You've got a new supermarket that is new business. In Kingaroy, there's a new service station happening. Bunnings are coming to the region. There's Bega have taken over PCA. We have the AGL wind farm that we share with the Western Downs. Nananga has a new service station. We have taken a number of agribusiness operators within the area. I don't know whether or not you were part of that one, Barry, to meet the buyers in Brisbane. Maybe you were, in terms of avocado. Last Saturday there was a group of greengrocers who came up to the Cumbia area doing a promotion on peaches and nectarines. Through our Economic Development Unit, we promote the South Burnett region at regional flavours. We're doing our very best to try and promote the region as a place that is inviting as far as business is concerned. It's a very big exercise and one that we invest a lot of time and energy into. Governance is another area. Belkera is a matter that's very high on the agenda for discussion among Queenslanders at the moment. You're aware of a number of Queensland councils that are in difficulty with their councillors or their mayors. The state government has stepped in and rewritten the rules, as it were, relative to various, the way in which councils are to operate. And this is where I'll step then to the issue of the Chief Executive Officer and to state the importance of a Chief Executive Officer in the business of council. Now, we're very fortunate to have Mark working with us. As the Chief Executive Officer, his role and responsibility is to provide leadership to the organisation. He's responsible for ensuring that council's local laws, decisions and policies are implemented in line with the Local Government Act. We are an instrument of the state government. The state government says to us across a whole range and raft of areas, thou shalt do this, that or whatever. At various times that often presents a challenge to ratepayers on particular matters, but these are issues that are legislated, and we as a council cannot make up our own rules when it comes to issues of legislation. We need to ensure that the Chief Executive Officer is ensuring that the actions, decisions of council are legal. The Chief Executive Officer, of course, provides a leadership to his leadership team and staff below him. The Chief Executive Officer is also a very strong conduit for myself as the Mayor and also to us as councillors. The role of the Chief Executive Officer is a very important role within council. and any council who is fortunate enough to be employing a good CEO has a head start, well, a good head start. Similarly, to have quality general managers is also a great benefit. We as a council often state our pleasure in having the quality of the team that we have to work with to help guide and direct and execute the policies and the decisions that we need to make. Now, Mark is going to talk to us for a little while on the business of council's business understood. So, Mark, if you'd like to share your thoughts with the audience here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending tonight. Isn't this weather beautiful? It is just so nice. So, you just can't say how good it is to see a little bit of rain coming through the area. I probably won't talk at you. I'll try and be as short as possible. I'm not going to go through this in any great detail. We're trying a few little bits of different things. I haven't been to these sorts of tours before with this council. So I suppose part of it as we go through the night, and particularly at the end of it, feedback on quite often it's really good to try and understand. I'm in the process of learning the business is what you want to know, and I don't have a mortgage on that. I've started with council in July, 2nd of July this year, so fairly newly minted. As I said, I'm still learning the business. My wife and I have bought a property in the region, so I'll touch wood. We're looking forward to it being a long-term stay and being part of the community. We're just absolutely loving it. It's just such a nice region. It's such a nice place. We're just loving being here and really enjoying. We've been out, we've engaged with a lot of community groups. The galleries have already got a bit of a nod. We've been to the Blackbutt gallery. We've been to all the galleries across the region, and we've just got such a rich, vibrant cultural arts network. It's just really, really good. Sort of very familiar with the area from my younger days, and for the last 8.5 years I was up at North Burnett, and then moved around with other councils as well. But particularly born and raised over in the Lockyer. My family is still over there, and spent a lot of time as a youth through this area. For those who remember Rural Youth Days, spent a lot of time out here with the Rural Youth Clubs when they were out and about and very active, particularly the Menango bunch. So it was really good. As I said, coming back to this, we're trying a few different little things. We're looking at different ways that we can get information out, and that'll be an ongoing process. And one of the things I've been telling people since I've got here is that I don't want to make any rash promises about what's going to change and what's going to be different. What we'd like to look at is we've got a good little council. It does some really good things. Taking the good bits and keeping those, and looking at the bits that need a little bit of work and a little bit of improvement from the organisational side, and improving that. Craig here tonight is one of those things. I don't believe we've had staff previously on these tours, and like the senior managers and myself are here is to get out and annoy people. I've been to a lot of community organisations, a lot of meetings besides the galleries. Very happy to come along to anything. The only thing I ask is there's one of me and there's lots of you, so I can't get to everything all the time, but certainly always happy to come and engage, have a talk. Happy to have a listen and a conversation. Sometimes we can help, sometimes the answer's no, but always happy to have the conversation and try and do what we can to help. One of the things you'll see in that document is the volume of correspondence, calls, emails, that we have, and this brings me back to Craig. We ended up with 17 customer requests in our system last night out of Menango. The customer request system. Craig would be able to give you a reference number if there is anything that's a burning little issue that we can deal with tonight. Happy to put it in. Well, time's up, meeting's over. Sorry. No, so it's that sort of thing. And one of the things that, it's a small and it's just, I believe, good manners, is that any piece of correspondence that comes in, be it phone call, email or letter, that requires an action, you get an acknowledgement and a reference number. Now that sounds really simple, and I said I think it's just good manners on our part to acknowledge. So it's a formal acknowledgement letter. It doesn't tell you anything. It'll have probably the relevant department. It will just be a formal acknowledgement. Now via email, text, we're having a bit of a think about, these are all we, but we're having a bit of a think about how to do that and make sure that we do. We get our fair share of, I'll call it junk correspondence, but someone trying to flog off a conference or something like that. I'm not talking about that sort of stuff. I'm talking about when you write in, you've got an issue, something requires an action. It's formally acknowledged. You've got the reference number because that reference number is really helpful for when, by the time something, if it gets to my level, it's a problem, that reference number, we can go back, track the document through the system and see who's done or who hasn't done what with it. As I said, that's just one little simple thing that we're looking at, trying to improve how we engage and how we talk to you. Council, literally, and it's again in there, is, well, actually, before I go, I've driven about 2/3, I've got a little map that I've been colouring it in with a highlighter. I've driven about 2/3 of the road network since I've been started with council in July. It is in that document. I was trying to have a look at just over the 3,000 kilometres of road. And I use the Nego again as the point. So I'm 2/3 of the way to Catherine. So if you put our road network sealed and unsealed together, you can drive, it actually extends from the Nego to Catherine, so we're just shy of Darwin. I've driven the last third will probably be a little bit more, take me a little bit longer because there's a lot of little roads that peel off here and there and everywhere else. Because one of the things that I do believe in is that when you call or something comes before the councillors, it's really nice to be able to say, oh yeah, I know where that is, and when I'm talking to you, yep, yeah, no, I've been down that road, I know what you're talking about. So, and that's part of my learning the organisation, learning the business, learning the region. We are a business, we're about $1.1 billion worth of assets that we manage across all asset classes. When we look at our books, our balance sheet, yes we have debt, yes we have cash in the bank, yes we have a whole raft of things, but councils more and more, we have community service obligations, but more and more that we act in a lot of ways as a business entity. A lot of our financial statements are published every year. As with every council, I've got the pleasure of doing the annual report and the audit for this year, not having though part of last year's budget, but we operate as a business and we manage about a $1.1 billion asset base, so we're a fairly large organisation as far as business. As I said, I probably won't talk too much tonight. Very happy to take questions as well. Very happy to have a chat about anything afterwards when we have a cup of tea. And I suppose one of the things that I'm particularly chasing as I go along at the moment is feedback is how do we better talk to you? That would be one really good thing. What are the things that you want to know? We can second guess what you think you want to know, but you're the people that know what you want to know. And
there are communities where people can actually discuss how to set the rates together with
I'm going a little bit deaf, I'm just sorry.
where there's community input into the setting of rates.
Okay, yep, really good question. The process, the budget process for setting the timelines, and I think the Mayor mentioned before October, November, we'll be looking to go forward. This will be the first year that I've interacted with the council as far as the budgetary process, and it'll be the first year that there hasn't been someone who's been within the organisation that's been there for a long time. Now, I'm bringing some, without, again, I don't want to make any rash promises, but without bringing, I bring a different range of experiences and understanding as to what's been here before. That'll be a conversation with the elected members about the process, timelines. One of the things that I have spoken to the council about, though, as we start to have the workshops, as the budget is starting to be developed, it doesn't quite answer your question, but we'll start to release information from October, November as the budget's being developed. So rather than waiting to the end of the budget process, that information will start to roll out regularly from October. Now, it probably won't tell you what the rates are going to be in November this year. That has to go through a fair degree of discussion and I suppose regulatory process to use the term. But what it will be is a conversation. There are a lot of councils now doing a lot of different things, and it's certainly worthy of having a look about what we can do. And again, go back to what works. What works, what's been good about the previous processes, is there something, and the opportunity is now to ask a few questions, so is there something we can do to improve the information
the council.
Yes, can I answer, actually, I was listening with great intent. I've heard it's an interesting conversation, the lawful, the constitution, everything else. At this point in time, local government is regulated and controlled totally by the state. Now, there is constitutional argument, and I've seen it over the years, about the federation and who doesn't, and Commonwealth. It is an interest, just a side interest of mine about the constitutional. It will be powers beyond this council that decides whether the levying of rates or the constitution of state government councils is lawful or unlawful. It's literally beyond our capacity to decide that. The system as it currently stands, which was your question before about why do only landowners get levied a rate, why doesn't council levy? Because that's the law of the state of Queensland. It's like probably a very simple analogy. I drive on the left-hand side of the road. I don't drive on the right because the law of the state dictates I drive on the left-hand side. We have to operate in the current legislative framework the state government gives us. Local government is constituted under the Local Government Act by the state government, which is similar in every state, similar but slightly different depending on which state. It's not a conversation that we'll be able to answer tonight for you because we just don't have the legal capacity to give you the answer you want. I'm sorry.
Can you change the structure of levying rates at all, or is that set?
Oh, it varies. Councils have a degree of powers under the Act, and they are very strong powers. The Act gives us very, as across the industry, very strong rating powers. As I said, I can't preempt that, not because I don't want to, because it's a conversation that will go forward over the next period of time with the elected members, and then we'll go from there.
Yep. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Mark expressed the point very clearly. As I stated earlier, we are an instrument of the state. We are controlled by various legislation. In answer to your question, I'll just make a point. We are responsible to a very large audience. Our audience within the South Burnt Regional Council is something like 33,000 people, and we have 17,500 ratepayers. You may want your rates to be lesser, but if you want to preserve all the services and facilities that are within the region, but you want your rates to be lesser, then that simply means that somebody else's rates have to be higher. And then you start another bonfire or another argument in another field. The issue is that this council tries to preserve a level of equity across the entirety of the whole region, respecting the fact that everybody's circumstances are different. We have something like 36 or more rating categories. Not everybody pays the same rate in the dollar. And that is done for and that's a model that's been in place for a long period of time. So I just want you to understand, we are here in Blackbutt tonight talking to an audience of 30 or 40 people, but the total audience within the whole region is 17,500 or more ratepayers. So we have a big family to speak to, look after and be as fair as we possibly can. And to ensure that we are as fair as we possibly can, Peter O'May, the General Manager of Corporate Governance, Planning and, well that's probably it, Corporate Governance and Planning, he will now address the audience and tell the guests here tonight some of the activities within your section.
Thanks, Keith. So Peter O'May, I'm the General Manager of Corporate Services. Corporate Services Department. So as a General Manager, we're responsible for the operational arm of Council. Our teams cover a number of functional areas. So within Corporate Services, we deliver a lot of the services to the community, broken up into a number of branches. We have our Environment and Waste branch. So Environment looks after things like we have our Environment Health Officers, the mosquito areas, our compliance team sitting under there. The waste, we've already touched on the waste, so I think we have the refuse collections and the transfer stations dumped. Natural resource management and parks and gardens come under corporate services. Again, the tourist dams fit in under there. Have a development services branch, which have our town planning, plumbing, building assessment team. Social and corporate performance, looking at our community grants programs, but also a lot of our governance structure, as Keith talked on. So we look at enterprise risk, fraud and risk prevention, the governance frameworks, the register of interests, a lot of the corporate planning and strategic framework, and the final branch is the libraries and Indigenous affairs. So they're the functional areas that I have a number of team and staff members that cover those areas, and we support the portfolio holders, and we're responsible for the operation, the delivery of those services in the areas. So, I've got a couple of questions and a few notes here and a few people to catch up with tonight, so yeah, more than happy to catch up. And,
As a corporate player, corporate persons have to act for the benefit of their shareholders. Prior to your corporate government, we had a different type of government where the profits went back into the people. With the corporation, with shareholders, most of the shareholders of that corporation are the people working in it, not the citizens of the country. I have a little problem with that.
I'm not sure whether there's a question in that or what you're getting at, but I can assure you, myself as an officer, all of my team, the councillors here, our decisions, our actions are all made in the best interest as we see it when delivering to the community. And that's about all I can answer it. Whether you disagree or agree, we try to do the best as what we to the community.
I will, excuse me, I will take that as a comment only. It's not an issue that really can be answered adequately in this forum, so we'll move on to Maureen.
I just wonder if you could tell me why you're allowing the supermarket to operate without a compliance certificate. That's surely illegal.
Yeah, it's an issue we're working through with the operators of
Well,
the
it's been open
supermarket.
since April, Peter.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Operating illegally.
Yes, and I suppose again looking at the greater good of that decision, we would rather have the supermarket operating, providing a service to the community.
Well, you either work within the Local Government Act or you don't.
Maureen, the issue is, as Peter has explained, is under the care and control of Peter's department. It will be brought to a fruition, I would think, in the very near future. There's a lady at the back.
Yes. Thank you. I'm worried about a couple of, like, in the main street, there's no disabled parks for anybody.
Right, okay. Disabled parks sounds like a customer request.
Okay.
If you see Craig and indicate your desire to have...
because there are a lot of people with disabilities and they've got no park.
That's fine. We had the same issue raised last night. We're happy to have a look at it.
Yeah. Also,
yes.
I've got trouble.
Yes, no,
sorry.
Yeah, no, wait.
I've got a big issue with the Christmas tree.
Yes.
Now, I'd like to know how much it costs us every year to have 2 stop and goes on one either side to put it up, and then one either side to take it down. Wouldn't it just be easier in the long run and cheaper for the taxpayers to move it to the toilet block on the corner?
Okay.
And it's not going to cost us to stop and goes.
Rightio.
I think that issue has come back and we have requested their staff do a costing of relocation of the park, because I think there was a petition. Yeah, that's right.
They used to do up a live tree.
Yes. No, it's been...
Excuse me, Maureen,
sorry.
Thank you. cost that it's costing us, the taxpayers, to have those people every year, over how many years is it going to go on?
Okay, well...
That issue has been raised.
Yeah. Well, there is a request in the system, is there not?
And I will have to follow that up to see where that is, because
Okay.
that is a little while
I
ago.
have another one.
Yes, where you go?
Also, between Thomas Street and Hart Street,
Yep.
there's a footpath. It is disgusting.
Okay.
I've fallen over twice.
Yep.
And there's a lady in a wheelchair that used it a lot of the time, but now has stopped using it
Okay.
because it's too dangerous.
All right, that is definitely a customer request, Craig, and put the details in. It will then be assessed by the engineering section to determine the level of safety. Now, Neville is, have you got any others?
Oh, don't worry, I'll think of something.
Right, Neville.
I'd just like to say, if you put enough disabled parks in the Blackbutt for this number of disabled people in this town, then we know where else we need to do this park.
Right, yeah, okay, I'll take that as a comment, but, all right, next one.
I'd like to know why the council has no control over landowners that have their properties with high grass, trees, fires, absolute fires down in Arkin.
Okay, that is definitely...
Need to clear their blocks.
Yep.
We're going to have a major fire through there.
That is an issue that Peter can address.
Generally, our overgrown allotment stuff generally works in the urban areas, and we do work with the rural fireys in the... So I think you're talking the semi-rural areas.
He's tried so many times, he's one of the top 5 in Blackbutt in the rural area. And you get no response from the council as to these blocks that he has to go out.
It's an issue, I suppose. We can't go and serve overgrown notices on rural land. That's probably the issue where our hands are tied. So that's where it's more of a negotiation, trying to get buffer zones, fire breaks done, and yeah, it is.
Well, you do it.
You're not supposed to sell there.
You out people to clear their blocks, but you don't do it in the market.
Yeah, well, I believe what Peter is saying, that there are rules relative to urban blocks. Rural residential or rural land is a different kettle of fish.
Just on that's one of the reasons why Operation Knock Knock was released too, to work with people in rural communities, just to make them aware of some of those issues and those hazards. I think it's been a pretty good response across the South Burnett region. But I think it's, again, I really appreciate the work that the rural fire do down, and particularly down in the north. I think you've been quite busy the last couple of weeks, but it's something that it creates awareness for people, and it's something that we would really like to see improve as well. But it's probably a bit of a collective effort to try and encourage people more than compliance and enforcement. So really appreciate the work that the rural fire is doing in that space, and I think it's an issue statewide. It's been an issue.
Well, I answer the phone all the time for the fire force to come to them. And, people are scared, they're actually terrified that there's going to be a major fire through.
Is it rural residential or rural?
That was rural.
Gentleman over here. Gentleman over here.
With the feral animals, since the boundary came down, I had 2 blokes who's come and trap dogs on my place. Since the boundary went down, they stopped coming. You see, only the nominee lot wasn't come anymore. Any reason why it dropped?
I didn't think we dropped it. I thought it stayed the same. I didn't think we had dropped it. I thought it was the same.
There's change.
The same as what I don't think we've dropped about.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you saying that the price per head of a feral animal is less now than it used to?
Wild dog.
Scalps.
The price dropped about 2 years ago.
Is it $40 per scalp?
How much?
Was it bound?
I have no idea.
We'll have to check. We'll have to check that.
Yeah, they've stopped coming. I had 21 young kids and 3 lambs killed in one night. I put traps out and bought $2 myself.
Okay, well, your question is really about the price per head or per scalp. We can get that information for you, actually, Councillor.
It's $35 a head, but I'm not sure that it actually
Craig has got it.
changed.
Head down to Craig again. He's pulled the information up from our website. If you go down and see Craig again, he can tell you. Now,
I just wanted to make a comment that it may relate more to the difference in the bounty between local authorities and the fact that the bounty's dropped.
Could be, yep, because they aren't all identical.
Yeah, you're right.
I
You
think
get $200
adjacent
places.
local authorities dropped their bounty, which meant it wasn't economic.
Well, we can answer the question. You pop down and see Craig again. Now look, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to move on because yes, if you've got one more question, then we're going to move on to Lester, who's going to talk about the budget, and then we're going to move on to the issue of roads and drainage because the time length for this meeting is 2 hours, and we've already expired 1 hour and 5 minutes. So
I'm just wondering, sorry, is there anything we can do about the shop next to the newsagent, the old grocery shop? Because it's an eyesore of Blackbutt.
it may be an eyesore, but doesn't comply. That's probably the issue.
And that's, if it's structurally sound, that's where our building codes are. If
But
it,
is it structurally sound?
Are
well, yeah.
you going to
I don't
lodge
know.
a,
We'd have to, yeah, have to.
are you going to lodge a request or a?
Well, I'm just worried because it's still got food in it, and you know there could be rats, anything.
There could be, but then there could be.
No, look, we can have a look. Have a look and see if there is.
Are you going to? Do you want a customer request on that one?
Yeah,
See Craig, and Neville. Sorry, Jeff.
Very quickly, I don't know whether it's a governance issue or a roads issue. What is the relationship between main roads and local government in terms of a town like Blackbutt that has a main road go through its main street?
Okay, Aaron.
Yeah, so our relationship with main roads is purely contractual. We do the maintenance on the DTMR assets throughout the South Net, with the exception, I believe it changes to Sunshine Coast, might be at the bridge here, I believe, something like that. The exact change I don't know. We have the same issue, Main Street of Menango, Main Street of Mergen, Kingaroy, Haley Street, and also through here. Generally, the council is responsible for the parking under the Transport Act, so when you talk about the disabled parking bays and that sort of stuff, that all rests with us. Generally, it's from the edge line of the carriageway, becomes local government in an agreement with the LGA kit, subject to road-by-road cases. But main roads do the renewal, they're responsible for any works on that road, the approvals of works on those roads, all that sort of stuff. So
The question was more around the speed that vehicles go through this town.
yeah, it'll be a DTMR issue, but we can raise it for you, quite happy to. So we run a traffic advisory committee in conjunction with DTMR and Queensland Police Service, very well participated by DTMR and QPS. There's a process we can do a speed review and request that and have a look at that.
So your concern, Jeff, is that vehicles travelling through Blackbutt are travelling too fast?
Do you think it's too high? Or?
Speed limits is not the issue, it's the fact that people aren't following the speed. There are trucks that come down that hill past the medical centre. If they're doing 50, I'm on some sort of medication. I have a concern that one day, it's come to me, I'm going to walk out of that centre car park heading for the bakery and think, oh no, I'll just go across to the newsagent first and not look, and I'm going to get wiped out. And it won't be me, it'll be a baby or a dog, and then the car again.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What we can do is, I'm happy to raise it with QPS. It'll be an enforcement issue. The other thing we can do is actually put out some traffic counters. So traffic counters don't actually just count the traffic, they actually take speed as well. So we have an idea of what the speed environment is and what cars actually travel with vehicles.
And it also registers the style of vehicle that's
we can track what sort of vehicles they are, so happy to look into that. We'll get Craig to dislodge that for me and happy to bring that back through the council and the division. So.
But it also is a compliance issue, so the police, if they are aware of it, they should, you know.
We'll raise it for you. That's quite happy to.
Taking the question one step further is you look at towns like Woodford where they've narrowed it down, so you've got to slow down. You can't go into that loading bay area, that gap between where the parking is and the highway is. And who initiates that conversation? Who initiates a conversation about flashing lights and saying you're going too fast or speed limit 50 kilometres?
Look, it is one that Aaron can
we
take up with QPS and maybe even raise it as far as the Traffic Advisory Committee issue.
We can initiate that quite happy to. Normally they have looked at a number of treatments, whether it's an engineering treatment or maybe an enforcement issue. In places where there has been high traffic, I'm aware of the Woodford situation with the created service roads, so that can be created for a variety of reasons. It comes in width and all that sort of stuff. But first thing they'll do is go through and take a speed count and the volume, and they'll establish whether it's an issue. And if it's a continual issue, they'll go through enforcement, engineering, or education. Just one of the three.
Alrighty, now Maureen.
Just a quick not more a comment than a question actually. Jeff's quite right being concerned about this, but living on the main road as I do, I find that it's the trucks that are more culpable than the cars. They go through here at enormous speed sometimes and they can't pull up as quickly as a car.
Yeah, no, happy to raise it and definitely check that with main roads and QPS. That's all.
I think Craig picks it up. Now, you have one more question, rightio, and then we're going to move on to Lester, who'll talk about budgeting unwrapped. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to react to Maureen's comment.
Yeah.
I have seen many a time where there's been a caravan turning at the monument and cars have hit up hard because the car's not looking. So you can't just blame the trucks. Everybody does it.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
I'll take that as a comment as well.
And
There was lots of it. Yep.
just outside the police station, as you're turning from the pharmacy to go downtown, there's a tree on the corner there where you've got to poke out further to see if there's traffic coming down the hill.
Yep.
Quite dangerous.
Whereabouts is that, sorry?
Outside the police station, looking up the hill, there's a tree that's on the corner.
Yep.
And it blocks the traffic coming down the hill, so you've got to go out further to see the traffic.
Yeah, look, if you want to give Craig those details, I'm quite happy to lodge and investigate that for you.
Are you keeping up, Craig? Yeah, good. Right. Okay, now look, folks. Sorry.
I think Craig should have
I'll let that to the Chief Executive Officer. Now we are going to move on, and I'm going to ask Lester to talk about unwrapping the budget, giving some details and insight. It's a very difficult issue for us as council, and Lester will talk about it. But having council meet the costs to run the business of council, provide all the services that it does and all the activities in a climate where government dollars coming back to us is lessening rather than increasing. I don't want to give the impression that we don't get any money from the government. We do. But let me quote one, for example, as a program or a grant called the Federal Assistance Grant that comes to us from the federal government. It is a share of the GST monies that's collected by the Commonwealth. Back in 1996, when that fund was first instigated, it was equal to around about 1% of the GST take, and that was distributed back. Lester will share with you that we were getting more from the federal assistance grant some years ago than we're getting at the moment, and the dollar value equivalent of the amount that we get from the federal government at the moment is more like 0.55%. So it has not kept up with the increased pressure of CPI and all of the rest of it. We as a council have not reduced services across the area as a consequence of this. So where does the money come from? The money comes from the ratepayer. You may comment about the rates, the level of rates. By and large, the issue is that the amount of money that we collect from the federal government has lessened rather than increased. I want to assure you that part of our role as a council, my role as the Mayor, is to advocate as strongly as we possibly can through the various peak bodies with which we're associated to get this message across. We have a membership with the Australian Local Government Association based in Canberra, representing councils from all over the nation, and we're going to bat in the hope that we can increase the FAGS grant contribution back to the state so that we can get a greater share. Now Lester, over to you to talk about budgeting.
Okay. Told you, Grant, I'm camera shy.
Gerard, I haven't got your head in.
So thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. Unwrapping the budget in 10 to 15 minutes is pretty hard to do. It's quite a complex process, and as someone spoke earlier with Mark or Keith, it does start in about October when we look at our capital budgets mainly, between October to January. And in December we start to look at our operational budget. So they're the two key elements to our budgets, is the capital side of things, is the renewal of our assets that Mark spoke about before and the quantum that we have for this council. And then the operational cost, which is the cost of providing the services across every range of service that we provide. We are quite a legislative animal, or a legal basis upon which we are established, and because of that, the Local Government Act and the Local Government Regulation prescribe what sort of a budget we need to adopt. They also tell us about how we can raise our revenue. So in terms of the Local Government Act and the requirements of the budget, I'm not going to repeat them because they're in your handout there. And also for your information, you can see the budget timeframes that I just spoke about in brief just then. So it's a process that culminates in late June next year, ideally, when the budget is finally adopted by council. So 7 to 8 month process to go through. The council is required to have a 3-year budget, so the year under review plus the next 2 years, and we're also required to have a 10-year financial forecast. And the reason for that is so that council has an eye on its financial sustainability over the long term, and not just today. It must look into the future, and it must look at how it can sustain itself and provide those, what you'd expect a council to stay over its lifetime, a sustainable council financially, speaking particularly from a financial sense. Our main income sources are, and if you have time, please find your way through to our website where you'll see our annual report, which Mark spoke about before. It's quite a detailed look at our activities from year to year, and our budget. Our budget is also online, and we try each year to put the best explanation we can forward with the budget documents. So find your way through to there and have a look at them. The budget that I'll talk about the revenue in a moment, but when we provide the budget, we do it from whole of council operations. We need to consider though that the whole of council operations includes what we call general operations, and that is the running of the administration centres, the running of the works crews, the compliance and other services that Peter spoke about. So more of the general operations. But it also includes water. Water is a separately funded program within council's budget, and is charged to via a water charge and an access charge and a use charge to all the towns and villages that have a water supply. We also have a separately funded waste water or sewerage schemes where they are in place, and there are access charges that we charge there for the collection and treating of the sewage effluent. We also have, as Councillor Ross spoke about, our waste program is separately funded from the bin collections charges and from the waste levy that Ross spoke about as well. I think they're the key ones. I don't want to miss any. Yeah, so that's when you look at our budget, consider all of those things. It's not just the general rate, it's water and other charges as well. So our main revenue sources are fees and charges, interest received from our investments of our cash as we go during the year. There's other income, rates, levies and charges, rental income, sales revenue and grants and subsidies. Sales revenue is mainly the contracts that we have with the Department of Main Roads to maintain their asset through our workforce. That's the main part of that money there. The grants and subsidies, we might well deal with that, but Keith has introduced that fairly well. Now you've got it right on my face, Grant. I've got myself off track. Keith mentioned that before. So the federal assistance grant is our prime source of thank you, our main source of grant revenue from an operational side. We do get capital grants as well from our TIS scheme, if I can use initials. They're funded from federal or state to mainly to do renewal works on our roads. But this money can be used for any part of our operations, and generally it is. So what Keith was speaking about before is, and I've got it in this flyer where you can actually see it. But from amalgamation to now, we're actually getting $850,000 less than we were 10 years ago. Compared to the peak time in about 11-12, we're getting $1.2 million less. You'd expect that these grants would grow over time, but they don't. They fluctuate. They fluctuate because the state have a commission in place who determines the allocations to the councils. So the federals distribute to the states, and then the states distribute to the councils. And they have a certain set of criteria, complex formula, one that you could probably spend a day and still not understand, on how they distribute those funds to the councils. That's why it fluctuates, and that's why it's hard to really get a solid look at what your revenue is. You'd expect it to grow over time. If over time it grew by 2%, we'd have $2.5 million more than we do now. If it grew by 2.5%, they're reasonable percentages, we'd have an extra $3 million. So about $150 extra per ratepayer if grants grew as you'd expect them to grow over time.
Excuse me, Mr. Turnbull said he'd given every council in the country millions of dollars. What are they going to do with it?
Yeah, so I just mentioned that we get about $6.998 million and we can use it to fund our general operations. So in terms of our expenses, the main categories of expenses are depreciation. Again, we're talking about the asset base that Mark spoke about. It's about $15.5 million. Whilst it's a book entry, it still has to be funded, and it's the money that we use to pay for our loan principal and to fund the renewal works that Aaron and Councillor Jones will speak about shortly. But that's about $15.5 million all up. With our own money, it allows about $13.5 million back into capital or renewal programs. We also fund employee benefits, which is the cost of employing our staff. It's about 37% of our expenditure. Our finance costs and materials and services. Materials and services covers everything else that we need to buy in, whether it's road making materials, contractors, consultants, specialist consultants, other purchases that we make to run our business as well. In terms of the quantum, we run about a $64 million operational budget, and of that, 83% of our revenue is own source revenue. Now that's quite a strong position for council to be in, and I talked before about financial sustainability. That's our key. Our real key is trying keeping the council financially strong so it can make those decisions that it needs to make and provide the services ongoing. 83% allows us to deal with any unexpected expenditures that we might have as well. So in the capital budget, as I mentioned, we spend about 13, 15 million of own source funds again. There is other grant money available for capital, and that is spread across all of our asset classes, pretty much the depreciation that we calculate for the various types of assets, and I'm talking about roads and drainage, water, wastewater, waste assets, which we use that back into those asset classes as well to renew and keep those assets alive. So each year too, we're required to, whilst we have a lot of autonomy of our own in terms of how we do run ourselves, we are required to submit to the Department of Local Government and to the Queensland Treasury Corporation our 10-year plans. So that there is an oversight of local government to some extent by the state or the other agencies that work along with us, and they do view our sustainability. There's certain couple of ratios that we have to comply with to demonstrate our financial sustainability. There's only 2 or 3 of them, or there's 3 of them rather, and it's a snapshot look at are we complying with our asset renewal? Do we have the operating surpluses or cash going forward, for example?
So what percentage do your shareholders get? Corporate shareholders?
So we're not a company.
We're like corporations.
So we're a creature of the Local Government Act, state legislation, not the corporations legislation.
Okay, we are not. Yes,
this is council. Once upon a time, under previous legislation, councils were allowed to keep a corporate seal, particularly prior to amalgamation. Since amalgamation, in particular 10 years ago, councils no longer campaign a corporate seal. We don't have Corporation Powers Act. We are a creature of government in that regard.
Don't you have an ABN number?
We have an ABN, but that doesn't mean but we don't have a corporate seal as such.
Dividends are paid back from corporations on the basis of profits generated. Councils are a not-for-profit body. There are surpluses held, but they aren't regarded as profits, Mr. CEO. So it is not something that councils do, and that is try to generate a huge surplus for distribution back to the shareholders. And as ratepayers, you are shareholders. Now, if we had a revenue stream from any other activity, for example, we own the operational rights to the Bundooma Dam and Yallakul Dam. We drive those as a business in the hope that they will produce surpluses above the cost, but those surpluses are then used to reduce the rates that are charged for the year. So that basically is the only revenue earning activity that we have. There may be 1 or 2 minor ones, but that is the biggest one that we have. So over the next course of time, there will be more and more effort contributed toward running and operating those facilities profitably. Lester, did you want to make another comment?
No, there's a question there.
Okay, question.
Where does the Blackbutt water come from? I was told Wivenhoe doesn't operate anymore.
The Wivenhoe, now Aaron will be able to answer that. The Wivenhoe pipeline does operate. It is delivering water to the power station, as I understand it, or has the capacity, but it is the, Ross, you know, the Bundooma water is the water that is... Blackbutt gets Bundooma water.
It's coming from up there, yes. Back down here.
Yes.
It used to come from Wivenhoe, didn't it?
It may have been at some stage.
I honestly couldn't tell you, but I think there may have been some connection between Blackbutt and Wivenhoe.
But that pipeline is now operational again. It wasn't, but it is now. Robbie?
my question is really to Lester, is that council produces a budget, but it doesn't seem to produce any figures of what actually it spends. So there doesn't seem to be any accountability in terms of the budget figure for a certain activity, but then the figure that's actually spent is just not available. I've asked for several figures, and that's always the answer I've got.
Can you be a little more specific?
Yes, environmental levy, for example.
Okay, rightio.
You get an environmental levy, where have you spent the money, not what did you say at budget time you were going to spend it on? Okay. What did you actually spend it on?
My understanding is that there is a record kept of where the environmental levy is spent. Peter, is that not correct?
Well, I've got letters into council and they've been refused by the relevant officers on the basis the information is not available.
Well, it should be, because the environmental levy, you're obliged to spend it back on the environment. If you charge
I know what you're obliged to do. I just want some evidence of it.
And that's correct. It needs to be documented, and you should have the other.
Well, I'm
and
sorry.
I sat down with you, Robbie, a couple of years ago and went through this
and I still haven't got the information.
Well, if you... Gentlemen, we're not going to have a little fight on that. I'm making the point, Robbie, if you want to come and sit down with Peter again, Peter has access to the information, right?
I think the difficulty...
So if I make an appointment with you, you'll have the information?
I need to get the issue that they are, and I know that what you're talking about is we've changed computer systems, and it was trying to get the 10 years worth of records out of the old system and the new system. So
I asked this information before last Christmas.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Point taken, and make an arrangement to see Peter. Now, gentlemen at the back.
Mike, we will use the levy on evacuation, fire and emergency service.
Yep.
Why is there three of them when it all comes under the one banner of Queensland Emergency Services?
Okay.
Well, I guess that's really an accountability thing, really. So you can see what we're raising for those three particular types of service.
It just seems strange to me that all three of those come under the banner, the same banner.
So the community rescue or the flight rescue is distributed back to Care Flight. The rural fire levy is distributed to the rural fire brigade. So there's different uses for the funds. If you had it as one, how would you distribute it back?
Those funds are not kept by council. The life flight. No. I'll just explain as best I understand it. The life flight levy, which is $4 or $4.25 a year, something like that. That was instigated $4. That was instigated some years ago. Reason, the likes of life flight, Care Flight, those. There are choppers per day, basically, that come into the South Burnett, and it was considered to be a contribution toward the sustainability of those services into the area. If your loved one or yourself was in need of a helicopter, so it's a fundraising activity, and all of that money is given directly out. The other one, the rural fire services, we as a council meet with the QFES on an annual basis. They collect the budgets from all of the rural fire services within the region. The rural fire services, put in their budgeted amount, what they want or need. The chief of the region determines how much they will get. That sum of money then is the basis on which the amount is then charged to rural property owners. So that money is then paid out to QFES. And the other one is a state government levy, and that is
for the air fires.
But it's a disaster levy as well, isn't it? It's used in the situation of disasters, whatever they may be, It's a state levy, so that when there's a major flood, major fire, major whatever, the state government have funds in their kitty to be able to help and assist out. So you're right, there are three different amounts, but they go off to different. They go off to different.
I agree it should be paid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just a query of what I think come under three different bands.
So it's just openness and accountability on how it's charged for and where it goes to.
Okay, well now thank you very much Lester, and Lester will be available for questions. We'll finish up with the roads and drainage portfolio. Councillor Jones and General Manager Aaron Meehan will speak. And if we can try and deal with this one, you have 25 minutes to complete the 2 hours work, and then if there is a final round of questions that you may wish to ask, that may have some level of strategic purpose in them, but if they don't have strategic purpose and they are questions that you would like an answer to, we'll channel them off to Craig to get an answer to you. Where you go, Councillor.
Okay, thanks Mr Mayor, and thanks to everybody for coming along. So I'll just give you a brief outline of what we're going to do, and then I'll pass over to Aaron. He's our General Manager of Infrastructure. He'll be talking about the operational side of things. So if we just go back, I know there's a few people here that were here 12 months ago when we came out and done this listening tour, and I'm going to go back to exactly that. What I said 12 months ago is exactly what we are about to unfold now, and that's the high priority road. We're going to do the gravel resheeting programs, maintenance grades and all that sort of stuff. So just to give you an indication, we've got about 3,000 kilometres of road that needs attention, and about a 50-50 split. So it's about 1,500 of unsealed and 1,500 of sealed. So at the moment, what we're going to do with that 1,500 kilometres of unsealed road, because that's the unfortunate thing, that most of our road complaints come from the regional areas that have those unsealed roads that they have to traffic on every day. So we have about, what our goal is, we're going to set a goal and a target of 2,300 kilometres. I'll go through the three levels of the service that we're going to about to unfold. We'll have a full gravel resheeting program, because as we currently speak, 80% of that 1,500 kilometres of dirt road has no gravel on it. Alright, so it's no good us going and saying, look, send out a grader, go and do a maintenance grade on a dirt road that has no gravel. You just turn it over to subgrade, you bring it all up, you get 5 mil of rain on it, it's worse than this dance floor, you're slipping all over it and it becomes a nightmare. So that's something that we're trying to achieve. We've got a 5-year program to achieve that, and Aaron will go into that a little bit further. So we've got the gravel resheeting program, and that's going to take out the high priorities. We're going to try and work through. We've got a racker system that we employed about 12 months ago or so now, and now we have every single centimetre of road recorded on computer. We have GPS locations of the really bad high priorities that we talk about, and there's stuff that you can't drive over any faster than 10 or 15 k's. The unfortunate thing with those is that they're not just in one area, they're all over our region. So we've got a whole nightmare of high priority defects. So the gravel resheeting is going to, that'll be our high priority. The maintenance and full formation grade will be the next one. We hope to achieve about 200 kilometres with that service. So every year we aim to get 300 kilometres of our dirt road network up to a very high level. So if you work that out, 1,500 k's, 3 years, 300 k's every year, it's a 5-year program. In the meantime, while we're doing the gravel resheeting and the maintenance formation grades, and keeping in mind that when we're doing these roads, the drainage and all that will be addressed. We've taken on board, we know that the drainage and all that wasn't being fixed. And previously, my first 12 months of council, it was 12 months of just belt my head against the brick wall and trying to get people internally to work with us and all that sort of stuff, and that's why this guy's standing beside me right now. We've had a change of general manager, we've had a change of manager. We've got other changes, we've got a new CEO on board that's absolutely brilliant, he's very positive, he's out here talking to you people, and that's a massive, massive improvement. So getting back to the other roads over the service is just a patrol grade. So you'll have a grader going out, and probably won't have a water truck or anything like that, it'll just be a dry grade. And we hope to service about 2,300 kilometres. So if you take out the 300 kilometres, the 100 of the gravel resheeting, the 200 of the full maintenance, drops it down to about 1,200, but we hope to achieve, just with the dry grade and all that sort of stuff, on these other roads, which are low priority roads, all right? So they're roads that are carrying about 5-10 cars a week, all right? Now they need servicing as well, but the greatest service that we're going to produce at the moment, because we can't get to every grade and we haven't got the money to produce this full maintenance grade and all that sort of stuff on every centimetre of the dirt road, these roads are going to come up to a very serviceable level. They'll be improved, but they won't be perfect, all right? So understanding that the 300 Ks that we do this year will go back into the network and it'll just be a slip over grade next year because we'll have the gravel back on it and the full maintenance grade, and over a 5-year period we'll get through that system and hopefully we'll have that 1500 Ks of gravel back on. But the 2300 that I'm talking and referring to, all right, there's probably 1200 kilometres of dirt left that will be serviced, so obviously we have an excess of about 800 or 900 Ks that will run over those roads again. So we're hoping to get graders on those roads. Nearly every other road that we don't service at that high level, almost 2 grades a year, all right? So that's a massive improvement, and what we're trying to get back, and you can go back and have a look at the videos that were taken 12 months ago. I said that we were trying to get, my ultimate goal was to get graders back into a region and have them circulating in that region every year, all year round, just maintaining those roads. We're getting very close. One of the first things I wanted to try and do was shift money around internally. Previous to this guy jumping on board and a whole heap of discussions with council and CEOs, I was told that we couldn't do it. So now we're just about to unleash the biggest, like 4.2 million on gravel resheeting. It's unheard of in this council or previous councils before on gravel resheeting. So we're listening to you. We're taking on board. It's been a hell of a journey to get here. I've always said it was never going to be fixed in a couple of years. It was always going to be 2 to 4 years and maybe 5. But we're just at the process now, or the point where we're just about to unravel this whole new process, and I think it's going to show great dividends in the next couple of years at least. Next year we have a budget coming up. We've got a letter on our table at the moment in the CEO's office saying there's 4.2 million from Works for Queensland coming. I've been told that I'm not going to get 3 million, but I'll be fighting like hell to get 3 million to go into roads. I see the lady next door to me, that deputy mayor, we'll fight with her, but anyway, that's the whole process. We're going to try and get as much of that 4.2 million into roads and increase that gravel resheeting program next year. All right, and then hopefully next term, I'm going to stick my hand back up and I want to get back in and I want to finish the job we got, and then it'll go on and Aaron will continue on and give you the operational program. So that's about where we're at. That's just a brief, quick outline of where we're heading and what we're hoping to do in the next couple of years and what we're about to achieve. And Aaron can now elaborate on the operational side of things and the money and all that sort of stuff.
Take a quick question, Robbie.
Could you publish in your portfolio reports every month of your targets and how you're getting there?
Yes, Robbie, good point. No, and exactly what Aaron will touch on. And also the other thing that we're going to, thanks for bringing that up, we're going to have a works program and we're working on that right now. We've come out a little bit quicker than we hoped. We were hoping to have all the maps and all that sort of stuff to show. We've got the maps now, but we just haven't got them all ready. We could show you exactly where all the high priority defects are and all that sort of stuff. And what we're going to do is do a works program. It's going to be a 3-monthly program. So September, October, November. When we work through September, it'll go October, November, December. It'll be available on the South Burnett web page. It'll also be printed in the media, I believe, and it'll be quite readily available, and in my portfolio report from here on in we will have targets, and obviously the works program that we produce is not always going to be spot on. We're not always going to get there on the day that we say. Obviously disasters happen, but we're going to work to it as close as we possibly can.
It'll rain, but when you want to grade.
Alright, so I'll hand over to Aaron. I'll be back. So I'll be here after we all finish for more questions.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, no worries. There's probably not much left to say after you've covered me off, so probably just want to touch on a couple of things. So council's made some, in my opinion, some very good decisions in the last 12 months, particularly with capital budgeting. They've given me a clear direction to focus on fixing assets. Previously we've invested across a number of programs, but they've very much come on board with fixing assets across not only just the roads but also across their other infrastructure, particularly water and wastewater. And we've been telling a real focus on that as a division. The key focus for us in the road area at the moment is on renewals. So So that's on the resheeting program, which the council touched on before. This year we budgeted 4.5 million. Normally council would do probably around 1.5 million per year. We've taken away a lot of the funding that we used to spend on upgrades and those sort of things and brought that back into repairing the roads. The other program that we're running at the moment, and we will continue to run it for the foreseeable future, is a reseal and rehabilitation program. We're looking at investing around $3 million on the sealed road network continually to make sure that we get those reseals down and get the network back up. That ultimately reduces our maintenance costs. And again, we're seeing a bit of synergy now, particularly working in partnership with the council and the councils. We're very, very supportive about taking those ideas on board, and that's where the budget is this year. If you go and have a look at the roads budget, there's very, very little in upgrade. There's the odd very small project where we've got a co-contributed funding and those sort of things, but very much about fixing the roads. And that's the way that the direction of the team will ride for the next coming years. Probably another one, really important one that was discussed last week with council, where they've given their approval, is to introduce consistent maintenance service levels across all the South Burnett region. So at the moment we've probably been a little bit inconsistent in the past about how those services are provided. It will be the same service in Blackbutt as it is in Kingaroy, as it is in Mergen, as it is in Proston, and across the region. With that, the councillor touched on that we'll be introducing a new unsealed program. We'll be reintroducing the patrol grading, which I believe some of the councils here would have done pre-amalgamation. We'll be running 3 graders across the region, so they'll run on the zonal system, where they'll basically grade about 2,300 k's per year. That's what we will budget for. With that, obviously the network being 1,500, we would aim to grade every road that is an open constructed road at least once a year, and obviously carry a bit of extra on top of that. The other programs that on top of that we're putting in is we're going to budget for 200 kilometres a year or a full-time crew basically to do heavy formation grading. The idea of that is that if we can run a three-tiered service across the unsealed network, we can bring the network back on board very, very quickly. I think in 3 to 4 years, the network that it is today is to what it will be then will be very, very different. And I'm hopeful that people really do appreciate the services that are provided. In your sheet there, I often say that roads, I think, gets a tough gig. It's an area that everyone wants fixed, and it does cost a lot of money to actually provide those services. So there is some figures in your handout there, which does demonstrate the investment that we do make in roads. Just on that maintenance scheme, the council's looking at an annual investment of 2.5 million per year now, so which is a substantial investment on their part out of our maintenance budget. And the other large program that we're doing in conjunction with the reseal and rehab program is we're going to be investing around $3.2 million a year in sealed maintenance as well across the region. So again, the pothole that's fixed in Blackbutt is the same time it will be fixed in Nanango or any other town within our community. So very, 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 very excited to bring that on board. And again, the council has been very responsive to our ideas. I think the staff that we have at council do an excellent job. It's ensuring that they have the gear and the equipment and the resources and also the funding to enable those programs to happen. And I think we'll see some really good results, particularly in the next probably 6 months. We have already started to do these programs. You'll see the graders out at the moment. We're smashing out a fair large resheet program at the moment. The other thing that you'll see it start doing, again with an initiative of the CEO, is that we will start to publish a forward works program. We will publish one for capital works and we'll publish one for maintenance works. So we'll be transitioning across to those structures in the next couple of months, where we can regularly start to publish when we're going to grade a road. So people, again, we may not be there that week, but you'll have a look ahead to say, look, yeah, they are coming. You're more than welcome, and we would encourage people to contact us in the future. If we are doing work on your road, please come and talk to us. If you're concerned about drainage and those sort of things, quite happy to interact, particularly with the landowners. We want to get it right. We want to work with people. You will see the same grader operator generally all the time in your area. If you live on an unsealed road, it will be the same person, we would hope. We really want to build a relationship and get those roads fixed and work with the community on that. Apart from that, I think that's all, Mr Mayor, from me at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. You perhaps do have some... Can I say that when this council came to office, we came to office being very heavily criticised about the condition of roads within the region.
and there has not been, well since council amalgamation, roads have been the big ticket item in terms of criticism toward council wherever we have gone. So the decisions and the actions that were taken by this council in this past budget in terms of finding the necessary funds in order to support the road repair network wasn't done lightly. Councillor Jones is talking about the racket machine, where every centimetre of road has been filmed. We have looked within our business itself, within council itself, to try and trim costs wherever we can before we came to council, or before we adjusted the rates by getting rid of the road levy and converting it into an operational cost. The decision was a difficult one for us, and it's difficult for some ratepayers. Nonetheless, in order to achieve the work that will be done on the roads from this year and forthwith, we needed additional resources. And it's a bit like, some of the things that were said earlier tonight. If ratepayers want something, you can't trim the costs, you can't get rid of a whole range of other services and throw it all at, the issue of roads. So what has been done as a unanimous decision by council. Yes, there have been some hitbacks and kickbacks as a result of it. It's now up to this council, through the General Manager of Infrastructure and Councillor Jones, to ensure that delivery of the work is done, and done in a way that has been outlined to you tonight. And this is the message that we're carrying around to each of the regions as we go with this listening tour. Now, okay guys, are there any questions or comments that you'd like to offer? Yes, Willow?
I'm not quite sure who to address this to, probably Spud. The chap over here that they were having trouble with the cars, has that been rectified?
Yeah, I'll let, that's Rose's portfolio, but it's definitely been fixed up. That's the water pipe, same issue with the...
Oh, yes,
the card. You're talking about the cards and that one?
Yeah, the cards, yeah. And just one quick question, are you, a council ever going to supply a card, or is there always going to be the police?
We're not supplying the cards.
So it'll be...
And that Aaron, we had a talk to Tim Lowe, he's the manager of water and wastewater today. Aaron will be able to fill you in a lot better.
Yeah, that's fine. So you have to use you've got the option of using it's basically the pay wave system or the credit card system. So you can use a credit card, you can use a prepaid card. I think you can use the Straight Post, Bendigo Bank, or any prepaid supplier. And you can also have the option to use a debit card or a Visa debit card, which is linked to your savings account, so that'll work. There has been an issue with Bendigo cards, I believe. So even if the pay wave's not working, or you have an issue with the pay wave, they will insert. Same as when you use it at the supermarket, sometimes they can be a bit finicky. I actually had staff buy a card last Thursday, and they drove out here to test the cards, and they do work when they are inserted. So if there are any troubles, please contact us. We really want to make sure that works. I think it's a great system, to be honest. It's very, very popular at the moment across the region, and we really want to make sure that continues to happen. If there are troubles, please let us know.
But there'll never be a council card, it'll always be...
No, it has to come through a bank. It has to be a bank supply, so...
Yep. No, that's right. I just wanted to make sure the council weren't going to do a card and then...
No, it's the same as when you buy your groceries or you
Never will.
My wife's Bendigo card works like they use my own Visa.
Yep. If she inserts the card, my understanding is if you insert the Bendigo cards, it does work.
It didn't work.
Yeah, okay.
Make sure she pays you back.
When was that? When did that happen?
Robbie?
I have a general question. This is the fragment time. Council's delegated a significant number of its powers to the CEO, who's not elected and provides little or no reporting to residents and ratepayers on the exercise of the powers he's been delegated. Delegated authority reports are mentioned in the minutes of Council's general meetings, but without any details, effectively hiding many decisions from the public view. The inclusion of the full contents of the delegated authority reports in the minutes of Council's general meetings would meet the local government principle of transparency in decision-making processes. Would you take the necessary steps to achieve this?
Well, I'll take that as a question that I will count through.
You read the agenda?
Sorry?
You read the agenda? The reports are in
When?
the agenda.
They're not.
I'm happy to chat because the reports are in the agenda.
I specifically looked that up before I came out this evening.
Okay, yeah.
It says the delegated authority report, but then there's nothing there.
Okay, yep, all right. No. Not in the minute. It won't be in the minute because the minute is literally the minute. Yeah, happy to have a chat. It's not there.
So where does the ratepayer find that?
Yep, okay, yeah. Sweet. No,
Openness and transparency. There's nothing to hide there. It's a legitimate question.
I'm not saying it's trying to hide it, I'm just suggesting you can do better.
And I'm not suggesting that you are.
Great feedback.
I'm simply saying that it can be made, it can be made about.
Point
Gentleman
taken.
over here. Yes.
What's the roads? Who are addressed?
A bit of quiet please at the top table. Gentleman down the back.
At Brunarton, there's three bad ones out there. Williams Road.
Yes.
When is it be on the program?
No, it's a dirt road. There's about 3 dirt roads out in that section, and then there's the old S road section that I'm working on. Well, the old mate will try and get a result for that. But
They will be graded this year. So they will get a patrol grade, and then they'll be backlogged.
They will be graded this
2
year.
years ago, I was driving semis,
Yeah.
and the bus had to back because there's no way in the world I could back out.
and that's
on Williams Road.
that Williams Road going down the hill there across the gully. and
No,
all
it's
that
up the other side, on the mill side.
Oh, you're over there.
On the mill side.
Yeah, going from Old S Road up to the top.
Cars going up to the mill there.
Yeah.
That's too narrow because.
Well, that's a road that would be, I would suggest it would be fully, all the drains and there's a lot of trees like close timber and sort of, there's a lot of rubbish on the sides of the roads that can be cleared away and make that a whole lot better for traffic to go through with the bus on top of it, exactly that. So we have mentioned that when we went down there to drive down there.
And going from Blackbutt into Benargan.
Yep.
Yeah. So what will happen is
It's all that deep along the edge.
So what will happen now is
Just when it's going to be on the program.
yeah. So there'll be a new we'll be transitioning over to the new program in the next coming months. So we'll be releasing a new program for each region. Those roads will be at least graded. If they've got high priority defects on them, they will be patched out. We will start to clear those out. In the past we've gone out and done isolated defects. They will be done with a grader and a water truck now, so that will be cleaned up. Any road that's not graded, it reaches a certain service level, will be backlogged into either a heavy formation grade within that 200 k's, or go to reshedding and closed up over the next probably 2 to 3 years. It may be next year's program, or it might be the year after. But happy definitely to have a look at it and provide that program going forward. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey.
So all that extra roadworks is council employees?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Second question, drainage.
Yes.
Blackbutt has a quite extensive drainage program that seems to have stalled.
That's your, for the aged care?
Yeah. Including aged care, but that whole section. We're now 4 or 5 years or longer from a major rain event. Hopefully we get another major rain event very shortly. It'd be nice to have some drainage in place.
Yeah, I'll just answer quickly and then I'll pass it on to Aaron. We don't have a huge budget for drainage in areas, but I believe that there's a little bit of a hold up for your pipes for doing your aged care. Aaron can elaborate on that very shortly. So we have a whole region to service. There's a lot like Menango, every town through the region, the major towns have issues not having curb and channeling on the streets, and Blackbutt's the other side over here is terrible. Over the other side of the main street, Aaron, he's seen that there's a whole heap of work that needs addressing there, but we don't have a big enough budget to do the whole region. So in fairness, we've got to try and, certainly you try and represent your division as best you possibly can, but you can't possibly expect to get all that budget. So if we can get a part of that and address the main stuff and try and tie in with you guys initially. And I'll just briefly touch on the works program, and there's nothing been finalised yet, but I'll be honest, that a lot of the major stuff will go to the western edge of the division this time around, but I will make a very strong statement that I will fight very hard next budget to make sure that the same amount of money doesn't go out around that western country and it'll be back in here and servicing us. So in the meantime, we've got to try and work with Aaron and try and get the graders over and get those roads up and keep maintaining it, and then we'll work through. But Aaron can answer that other question with that.
Yeah, so just probably two comments there for you. The project for the extension of the stormwater network will go ahead. There was a delay of 12 weeks for the pipes and culverts. The other supplier offered to bring them forward, but he was going to charge us an extra $40,000 to do so. So I made the decision that we would wait. The staff will be in contact about that if they haven't already, to deal with the builder. We will be starting work before Christmas, so I think it's going to be around November at this stage. So that project will be accelerated, and that will be done by council staff. Originally we did look at going to contract, but given the importance of it, we're going to put that front and centre with probably a prominent group come in and do that work. As far as extending the network and upgrading infrastructure, I get a lot of requests, and so do the councils. They often advocate for upgrades and those sort of things. It's very, very difficult to give them at the moment, and especially the establishment of new infrastructure. Every time we do that, we take money away from reseals, we take it away from resheeting and those things. I've been through the numbers with council, and quite diligently we had a discussion last week about maintenance. Our budget is very, very tight, and I make no bones about that. I was pretty upfront with the council about where we are and where we should be, and we're doing absolutely everything we can to make good decisions with our money, and that's what we're focusing on, the programs that we have. If it makes sense, we still will do smaller upgrades, say on the bitumen network and those sort of things where we can efficiently do it, and we are actually carrying the cash to do so. But it's very, very thin in that space, and particularly I'd love to upgrade networks. Stormwater footpaths is another one. Again, we will be having a look at forward programs for those, but very, very tight to actually put in new stuff. We're really much about fixing. The lady raised an issue previously about footpaths. We will start to establish a program for replacement and repair of that infrastructure, and come back to council how that needs to be funded and managed. One very important thing I did leave out of that consistent service levels, and the council touched on it before about RACCAs, was we will be inspecting every asset we own annually from now on. So we will be walking the footpaths, we will be inspecting the drains, and inspecting the roads on a regular basis, or at least every annual, depending on the type of infrastructure, to ensure that we are well informed about what's going on in the network. And that allows us to communicate with the council so they know what's going on, and obviously back them out to the community, so that we can make good decisions about what we have, what we own, what we can and can't do. Very, very important. You don't know what you don't know, and the council, in my opinion, are being very well informed now by the staff, which is fantastic, and we are working together to really try and put through realistic expectations about what the future does look like over the next 3 to 5 years.
And just quickly going back to the start, we try and keep our staff as fully employed as we possibly can without any dramas, but there may be some occasions down the track where we are under the pump and we might need to get some contractors in occasionally, but we would certainly...
Our baseline will be council staff. That's what we would aim for.
And also expertise.
Absolutely.
I'll defend our staff to the max, because I don't care. People say to me, why are you keeping council staff, get contractors in? I don't care where you go, mate. Our staff are as good as any contractors around the place, and I will always stick up for them. And I'll just say now, there'll be a couple of media releases coming out in regards to some major roadworks that Aaron and myself and a lot of other staff, but Aaron and I met with Minister Bailey yesterday, yep. And we'll have some, hopefully have some very, very good news regarding the road in our region. Yeah, has never been tried to be bitumen for a long, long time.
We will hope that comes to pass. Now, yes, Emmerich, I just want to say we will take your question, but only after I have made the comment, okay, Nolene, but
The thing is, this is number 2 of 9 visits that we're making, right? So, if your appetite has been whetted as far as other questions or points that you may like to ask, there'll be the opportunity over a cup of tea or coffee at the end of tonight. But there is a meeting up in Maidenwell on Wednesday the 3rd of October, that's next Wednesday evening, and at Cumbria on Thursday the 4th of October. And if you still feel that you have other points and questions you'd like, there's still another 4 or 5 visits to make. So now, Emmerich, your question, then Nolene's, and then we'll call it quits and call the meeting to close and adjourn for a tea or coffee if you would like to. Thank you, Emmerich.
Did I get an answer for, we haven't got an answer to know when are you guys going to do the drain at this stage?
For the aged care?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Aaron
Yeah, I
just
think
mentioned
at
it
this,
before.
don't quote me on it, but I believe the start time is around late October, early November at this stage.
So an email was sent to you guys from the secretary because we need to report to the federal, whatever they are, grant guys. Do you want me to send you the email again and you can...
So you had no response?
No response.
We'll chase,
because that's operational, mate.
Yes, please.
We'll chase up. The works manager's due back next Tuesday.
Right.
We'll have him come down and speak to the secretary and the builder to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, we got to, the federal,
Get the funding, yep.
federal
Yep.
found, they need to know what we're doing.
Yep, no.
Okay, thank you, Emmerich.
We'll
You happy with that? Yep. Now, Nolene.
I don't know who to address this to, but my question is, council owns Kingroy Hall, correct?
Kingroy Town Hall, yes.
Does council pay rates on it?
Yes. Council pays rates on all of its properties. As I understand it, Mr. CEO, there is a provision for rates on all of the...
It's mainly the utility type charges that we rate ourselves on, yes.
Mainly the what, sorry?
The water, wastewater, those sort of charges, utility charges we call them.
Yes, sir.
Since that was the last question, I just like to thank the councillors
3 minutes.
and the council staff for coming and their time.
Okay, thank you. Well, look, let's now, you're right, thank you very much. Draw a close to the meeting. Thank you for your comments, and thank you, audience, for coming along and having listened. Thank you for the spirit in which you participated in the meeting. And as a council, you can feel free at any time to approach us, to ask your questions, and hopefully we can give you a responsible and respectful answer. Mr. Roberts.